Hey, hello.
Hey, and we are
Right.
live now. Hey.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, or
Yeah.
just day. I
Good
suppose.
morning. Let it go again. No, it's afternoon now, Charles.
Well, no, I was thinking whenever they're watching it. That's the trouble. I was thinking I don't know when they're watching it. So like,
good evening. It's a funny thing of the English language. You can't say good night. It's always going to bed, isn't it? You can't go. You can say good evening, but if I met you at midnight, you can't go good night. You go, oh, we're leaving.
I used to when I worked in the hotel. I used to say that like a few times, and I was like, yeah, it sounded weird because people go into their rooms to go to sleep. Like, then so I'd be like, oh, night. And then I was like,
you go, no, I'm going out. You go, no, I mean, good night. Have a good night.
I was thinking like, I'll just have a good rest of the evening, or whatever. Have a good rest of the night. But like, because it was late, But then I was like, yeah, it sounds a bit weird.
The anxiety of being British and trying to have a conversation.
What is the formal?
Yeah, just anything. Yeah.
So North Korea.
North Korea.
We've gone from being British to North Korea, North Korean, and King Jong-un. Is it UN?
Yeah, I assumed Un.
I think we'll go with a decision that it's Un. Yeah,
Mr. Kim rolls off the tongue a bit easier.
Well, there's a couple of Kims, to be fair.
Now, currently.
No, well, there is a dynasty,
the previous ones,
there? No, yeah.
Well, Kim is the family name.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Kim Jong-un. So what's their family name? Kim.
Yeah, Kim is the family
name. So they're all variations of Kim.
Yeah.
They say their surname first.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Kim Jong-un, Jong-il. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the
Kim Jong-sun as well.
Okay.
Kim Il-sung? Kim Il-sung.
So Kim Jong-un, do you know how old he is? I forgot that I didn't look. He's in his 30s, isn't he?
Yeah,
I think he's 38, 39, 38.
How old was he when he acted in Team America? How old was he then?
That was Kim Jong.
Was that the one before?
Yeah,
he looked quite young. Do you know who does the voice for that?
Well, it's the South Park guys, isn't it?
Yeah, the guy called Trey Parker who does Mr. Garrison and Cartman. You wouldn't think would do the same voice like Mr. Garrison and Cartman. They're quite different, the voices.
But they do most of the voices in the show. It's the two.
Oh, it is. It's just a few of them.
Yeah, Matt Stone and Trey. Yeah, so there's often bits where they're just talking to each other, essentially, to themselves, essentially.
Talking to themselves. Yeah. Which is it's the same thing with Simpsons, as they have. They have whole conversations to themselves. Yeah. Very strange.
I wonder why they do that. Why don't they get various people on?
Well, it's harder. It's harder to fight. It's cheaper, but it also means it's harder to fire you.
No, I don't think it's cheaper because the labor rights or whatever wouldn't allow you, union rights wouldn't allow you to do two voices and get paid the same. You'd have to be paid separately, isn't it?
No, I think you'd be paid per session.
Maybe. And it's less faffing around with actors and getting different people in and schedules when they can just do it themselves.
Once you know the personality and all that, okay. Yeah. So from Simpsons back to North Korea. Has he ever featured anywhere in the Simpsons archives, Charles? North Korea,
Simpsons,
or even a looky-likey sort of, they've an exaggerated version of a.
They've had a few references here and there, I think.
North Korea. It's a bit heavy because can't make light of it, can you? Really, it's quite a.
It depends who they're making light of. I think.
Mind you, Team America. So
because they made fun of Castro in The Simpsons.
Did they? In what way?
Yeah.
In what way?
In the $1 trillion bill. So they go to Cuba. With the $1 trillion bill, and he basically steals it from them.
Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, they're not too bad. They named a street after me in San Francisco." And they whisper in his ear, and he goes, "It's full of what?" I don't know what it's filled with.
Yeah, of course. Certainly in the '60s, anyway.
Yeah. It might have been free and easy. I don't know.
Yeah. So what we got? We got labor camps. Abuse of women, abuse of citizens and starvation, basically.
But enough about the Vialucci show.
Fucking hell, where'd you start? I mean, basically, they're being backed by the Soviets. They should have crumbled a long time ago with all their... Go, Charles.
Well, backed by the Chinese now. They were backed by the Soviets.
Oh, the Soviets have pulled out a bit, have they?
Yes. Once the Eastern Bloc collapsed,
they were funneling money into them, weren't they? The Soviets,
until the 90s. So
yeah. And that was a big cause of the famine as well.
Yeah, go on, Andrew. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say we could always start at the beginning and work that way rather than throw a dart at the timeline.
Have you listened to this show before?
Yeah, true.
Right, go on then. Who wants to start? Give me something on the early days of.
It was previously known as the Hermit Kingdom because it's always been a bit shut off, as often parts of Asia, East Asia have been. So, for example, China locked itself in for a time. Japan did as well. Yeah. And you kind of look at colonial history and you go, well, they had the right idea. If only the rest of the world had thought of this. So Korea was shut in for a long time and known as the Hermit Kingdom. This was in the night. It's still referred to as such, but just North Korea, whereas the whole of Korea used to be referred to as a hermit kingdom.
So they sort of have a cultural tradition or a sort of historical
exactly.
kind of thing.
Yeah, very much so. And then the country was placed under the protectorate of Japan in 1905, which is a nice way of saying we've basically taken over, and then formally annexed in 1910, and it remained under Japanese control, although it had basically a puppet government. It was essentially ruled by Japan until the end of the Second World War. And then, a little like Germany, the country was divided because the Soviet Union, although it was allied with the West, wasn't fighting Japan until near the end of the war. That it was the two-pronged thing of the nuclear bombs and Soviet invasion of Japanese territory in China that ended the war. It wasn't just one or the other. So just as in Germany, they divided the Korean peninsula in two down a line of control.
The 38th parallel, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So, which is still the one today. No. And so the US, predominantly the US, held the South, or kept it in order, as it were. Soviet Union, the North. They had elections in the South, UN-supervised elections, which elected Sung Nam-ri, I think his name is. I've completely, because we're focusing on the North. So in the North, basically Kim Il-sung was chosen and appointed to be the leader, effectively, de facto, by the Soviets. They did hold elections, but it was just like, here are 5 names on a list, pick one. Was the
he was a big war hero as well.
So
he'd led the resistance and was a big guerrilla fighter against the Japanese. So I mean, he was,
but more so in China.
Figure.
But more so in China. So he'd actually he'd gone over. He was kind of basically a stranger in North Korea because he'd spent so much time. He joined the Communist Party of Korea, of Korea, but they had been exiled because they were seen as too isolationist, whereas the communist, so for example, that's the difference between Stalinism and Trotskyism, is that Stalin wanted Russia to focus on itself as a communist power, whereas Trotsky believed in a communist global revolution. The communists inside North Korea wanted, again, to be a part of the global system.
Workers of the world unite.
Yes, basically, yeah. Kim Il-sung wanted to be an isolationist communist state, so he was exiled along with others, fought against the Japanese in China, linked up, actually became a member of the Red Army, so the Soviet army, and then continued to fight in China as they fought against the Japanese, and only returned to Korea after the war had ended. There were lots of different people that could have been leader, but he was seen as the most effective by the Soviets. So he was, although he wasn't immediately elected to power, they just kind of had a communist, whatever council or whatever you want to call it.
So what year would he have come to power then?
So this was in the I think it was the same year. So both, always that one-upmanship. So I think the South Koreans had their election in September 48. Kim Il-sung came to power in August 48, so a month before.
Right.
So you can kind of imagine that one side went, they're having elections, let's have
48.
Yeah.
48.
So 48, how did he was another revolutionary, this is going to be great type of guy?
I suppose so, yes.
Then it just went...
the Japanese were like they were with lots of the occupied territories. They were very brutal and very nasty and very callous to the local populations. So I mean, it was seen as a liberation at the time, and especially as they had quite a rigid oppressive sort of feudalist system as well in the country. It was seen as a liberation of workers as well. So initially, I suppose it was welcomed with open arms. On the whole.
Yeah, it seems to have a lot of this starting as a liberation thing. It never goes well, does it? Like they're all coming as we're going to make everything better, and it just slowly becomes.
Well, a big problem is that other people, stick their oar in. So the US, the US and the Soviets, it's both sides. It's not one or the other. They're both interfering and saying,
yeah.
So the Korean War, when was that? The
50 to 53.
Oh, it's just 3 years, was it?
Well, yes and no.
Kind of.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So they're in a state of truce, but they've never formally signed peace accords. There's been sporadic, so every once in a while, usually from the north, it has to be said, will usually, sink a South Korean ship or something. There was a flare up in the 60s, mid to late 60s, which is sometimes referred to as the Second Korean War. So there was lots of fighting.
The DMZ conflict, that was 66 to 69, which was a series of incursions from both sides.
There was a little tick for tat until it burned itself out, was there?
Yeah, sporadic skirmishes and incursions. And there was also a US warship was captured.
A US warship?
Yes, in 68. The can't remember its name, begins with P.
What was the big thing in America?
USS Pineapple.
Good old bless
Hey
her.
boys. What was the do you remember the big, it was a conspiracy at the time where was that the Cuban, when America said they were fired on? Yeah, they said they were fired on. Was it? I thought it was a Korean
Tonkin.
Bay Tonkin, yeah. Well, they said they
Vietnamese thing, yeah.
fired on them, and then so they could attack them. And they said no, nobody fired at you.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's supposed to have been one of the instigating events of the Vietnam War. Yeah.
Oh, that's Vietnam. Yeah. So the Korean War was what year? 50 to 53.
Yeah.
So America got stuck in there. Well, they got called to arms, didn't they?
Well, it was. So again,
why did it kick off there?
So the North attacked. So it was. Kim wanted to unify the whole peninsula. That was always the plan between the both. In theory, anyway. So in the same way that Germany, the way they divided it was just to control it, because this is an area that had been previous. So there was a power vacuum. So it was like, and we've taken over from the Japanese. So the plan was always to unify the country, but no one could. So the 48 elections, had been hoping that would also see a reunification, but the North didn't want to take part. So in 50, Kim's plan was 1950. Kim Il Sung, his plan was to unify the country by force, essentially. And so he, although he didn't have it was his plan, but Stalin approved of it. The Chinese apparently were somewhat reluctant about the idea of, bearing in mind that they'd been fighting since much earlier than the Second World War. So they'd had a civil war, and then they'd fought the Japanese. So they'd been fighting for 20 odd years by this point. So, exhausted, but they still have the enormous manpower. So the Koreans invaded with help from initially just the Soviet Air Force. So essentially you had the Koreans backed by the Soviet Air Force, but not much else. And they pushed a UN army. So it's unusual for us to think of it now, but at the time it was a UN army. Whereas now we think of it as a peacekeeping force, but there it was sent as a military force.
Well, technically, I think they were described as a UN police force, like
police action.
And it was and it was because they got it passed in the UN because at the time the UN Security Council didn't recognize China; they recognized Taiwan.
Yeah, that's probably right.
At the time, and Russia was boycotting the UN Security Council because they refused to recognize China. They only recognized Taiwan as being a nation. Whereas it's the other way around now, because you're not allowed to recognize Taiwan as a nation anymore. And we recognize China. So Russia boycotted that meeting in solidarity with China, and in their absence, they authorized a military action against them. So,
just pawns on a board, just things moving around.
The war went. The North Koreans pushed the UN force. It was largely American, all the way back, almost to the very edge of the Korean peninsula. And then Douglas MacArthur, who'd been the architect of the Allied victory against Japan, then was still in command of them.
And governor of Japan as well.
And indeed, he led an amphibious launch, famously, that cut off the North army.
Yes.
And then they pushed the North Korea. It's not ha funny, but you watch this map and you go, fucking hell, what is all this about? Because you watch the map move up and down in terms of control, and then the South Koreans,
they said Seoul was taken 4 times.
Yes, which is mad.
You know what? They literally went up, down, up, down, up, down.
Yeah, so they pushed the North Koreans back all the way to the border, to the Chinese border, and then this is where China stepped in and sent 1 million men in one single attack across the border. And then drove them back, the US and the UN back again past the 30th parallel, and essentially from that point the war just went up and down past the back at the 38th parallel. The only difference was that at the same time the Soviets and the US were engaged in dogfights in the air with jet fighters, but it was one of these. They were saying that although they had to just shoot down the Soviet planes, their biggest fear that is if we shoot one down and it lands over South Korean side, then everyone has to acknowledge that we've been at war. You know? So it's just like, look, if we shoot them down, that's fine, but for God's sake, let's not hope we don't catch any pilots or.
What's the so how did it come to a conclusion that all that what happened?
Stalemate, essentially. Stalemate.
Yeah.
So they just drew a line and said, right, you stand there, we'll stand here. The DMZ.
Yeah, the DMZ.
Yeah. After years of going up, a couple of years of going up and down. They basically ended up pretty much exactly where they started. Almost.
God. Minus a few 100,000 soldiers.
Millions.
Oh, it's a million.
Millions of people died. I mean, millions of civilians died.
What was the Vietnam American comedy show? Was that Vietnam or was it Korea?
No, that was Korea. MASH.
MASH. Yeah, it was Korea, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was set in Korea, but it was aired during the Vietnam War, so it was effectively a satire on Vietnam.
Yeah, very much a proxy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So after the war ended, did it just slowly go down here from then, or did it have a bit of a nice period where it was?
Well, as you said, it hasn't really ended. Like technically, it's still going on.
Yeah, it hasn't.
Like, genuinely, I mean, it's a it is by all intents and purposes, but technically, it is still
nothing's
going
been signed.
This is the problem. This is the I think this is really key. This is the key issues that they are still. The North Koreans certainly have a history of being isolationist and being paranoid, and they still see themselves in a state of war with South Korea. And South Korea have in turn had to be militarized and be very defensive in return. You know,
because they're basically, it's like every day they're waiting for it to kick off. The whole country is just waiting to go to war again, sort of thing. I know I found that the women do the compulsory service. The women have to do 7 years, and every man has to do 10. And if you're part of his bodyguard, you're in there for 30 years.
Sounds about right. I mean, in terms of all military, very broadly speaking, personnel, because you also have like paramilitary, that sort of thing. North Korea and reservists. North Korea has the largest army in the world.
The land army, yeah.
Yeah, not the largest sort of standing army. I think it's US, China. It might be Turkey, I think, third, and possibly Russia.
Turkey.
Yeah, but have like a large mobile. I was just waiting for Theo to be like, hey. So our producer's Turkish. And they do have McDonald's in Turkey. Yeah, in terms of actually, so if they suddenly needed to go, right, it's war, let's switch this on, they can call the largest army land army in the world. But they were devastated by the war. It's hard to get figures, but they estimate that as much as 15% of the population of North Korea was killed in the war because of the just complete carpet bombing that took place. To put that in perspective, that's about the same proportion of a population as the Soviet Union lost in World War II, which is always seen as like one of the biggest losses of life.
The atrocities, for civilian deaths. It had a higher percentage of civilian deaths than in World War II and Vietnam. Yeah, and Vietnam again is considered an absolute slaughter and lots of awful massacres and bombings and very high civilian casualties. And North Korea was worse than that. I mean, Korean War was worse than that.
Yeah, the South Koreans committed massacres against the North Koreans. We imagine they must have been the evil, baddies, but there were instances where the South Koreans just executed prisoners en masse.
Hundreds of thousands. It's at least 100,000 people killed. The Bodo League massacre went across the whole summer. There were American officers as well, kind of okaying and giving the nod to this. The British, there were several accounts of British soldiers stopping executions and there were complaints, or official complaints, lodged by the British government to the American government saying that you can't condone this stuff because this is war crimes.
God, it's just, did they ever have a little period even after the wars where it was okay for a little bit, or was it just?
Well, what do you mean? How? Because I mean,
did they ever have an easy run? Like,
well,
it was just
their economy, the standard of living was, I don't know relative, but compared with South Korea for a time in the 60s, I think it was 60s and 70s.
70s, yeah.
Yeah, actually the standard of living in North Korea was better.
Oh, right, and the South.
Than the South, because the South was poor, it was corrupt, it didn't have any investment, whereas there was a lot of investment into the North from the Soviet Union, from China, but also because their system at the time, it was one of these things where it worked perfectly so long as nothing went wrong. And unfortunately, in the 80s, you had the collapse of the Soviet Union. You also had a break between the Soviet Union and China, so their support wasn't then unilateral and coordinated for North Korea. The Soviet Union collapsed. Which meant their imports and exports business basically kaput. And then there was famine, and then there were floods and various other natural disasters, which all just this perfect melting pot that led to disaster, that led to the famine in the 90s.
Yeah, it was a lot on energy imports as well, because they were heavily, they weren't energy sufficient. They weren't food sufficient, which is what their aim was, and they weren't energy sufficient, which is again another big deal. And the energy, coal and oil and gas and stuff was very heavily reliant on the Eastern Bloc and Russia. When that went, one of the big causes of the famine seemed to be an energy crisis. They literally just didn't have the electricity when they didn't have any manufacturing. They transport, agricultural machinery, things for fertilizer and pesticides and stuff. All these things just went.
But isn't there a thing about that their soil is actually not that great to grow stuff on? There was
the arable land is very, as a percentage again, is very low compared with. And
did it become worse because of like the building a sort of military blockade around it, or was it because they believed in self-isolationist anyway, or did that just make the problem worse?
I don't know that one, to be honest.
When did we start the blockade? Well, the world started to sort of blockade them off.
I suppose largely, from
how recent.
They were isolated,
quarantined.
In the way that sort of Eastern Europe and Russia and China were, in that they were self-isolating.
Yeah, they did have a big sci-fi. That's what I'm trying to think. Where was the problems lie? Was it the fact of we're going to stay on our own and rely on Russia, but now Russia's gone, but now we've got this thing in place where we look after ourselves, so we got nothing?
Well, there's a lot of that. It will be embargoes, a little like with Cuba, I believe. So yeah,
that's what I can't see.
From?
Yeah, how much is the problem self-inflicted? And
yeah, I mean, part of that is. I suppose it's sanctions again, so you can't do business with companies from these. In the same way that we do with Iran, there are sanctions with doing. But so if you do a deal with an Iranian company, the Americans will charge you, whatever enormous, punitive tax on that sort of thing.
Yeah, they limited travel and trade with the West, and that was fine at the time because they could deal with other communist countries. They were like, okay, we're not going to travel. We're not going to allow travel really. We're not going to allow trade really with Western capitalist countries. But we have enough communist countries to be able to do these things anyway, to exchange information, exchange research, science, whatever. When those other big countries went went their separate, well, China went a sort of slightly separate way, then that becomes a problem.
Yeah,
because you just have no one to trade with. You have no one to hang with. You've got suddenly got no allies, no one to trade with. So that's when the issue happened.
There was a guy. Oh God, where was it? Oh, it must have been a podcast or something where he'd been there, and he said, when you do go there and look around, you're never really going to meet anybody that hasn't been trained to talk to you, like in what they can and can't say. He said. He went to the doctors and the hospitals, and he said the equipment was from the 60s, like the medical equipment was from the 60s, and he go, oh my God, like they're still quite backward, and they're not learning from outside, so they're sort of in a loop of just. Oh, you're right, Andrew.
Yeah, we're back.
I dropped for a moment.
Okay. Yeah. He was saying when you walk around, you're looking at medical equipment from the 60s, and because they're not being taught anything from outside, they're sort of stuck in this time thing.
Yeah.
Because you can't communicate scientifically with the outside, so you're stuck only knowing what you know already.
This is the issue, is that we don't. It's difficult to know what to believe, really, and the information that we get is very. Well, you can't trust anything that comes out through official North Korean sources. Most of the information we have is from either Western intelligence organizations, who may or may not be accurate or may not have their own agenda, and defectors. There's a lot of information from people who have escaped and defected. Again, that may not be impartial.
Well, they claim to have a 100% literacy rate, don't they? It's perfect. We have no issues here whatsoever. 100%. Not even like, give us a couple of, knock a couple off.
I mean, even Gaddafi only claimed 90% literacy.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
They do.
It's like, if you're going to fake an election, don't go for 100%. Go for 98. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, a little
it shows a sign of their delusion. They'll fall for it if we just tell them. I wonder if Kim Jong-un has ever been out of the country then. Was he born into it?
He was educated, I want to say he was educated in Paris.
That rings a bell.
Or it might have been Switzerland, yeah.
Yeah, it's usually Swiss. They've usually on some Swiss school, haven't they?
He has travelled, and the thing is that this is the weird thing, is that the party higher ups, they've got internet access, they've got Sky TV, they've got cable, they travel, they've got holiday homes across the world. They know that the rest of the world,
right,
they know that the rest of the world is fine and actually okay, and that they're the fuck ups. You know what I mean? So like,
I saw an interesting thing. There's a guy called Kang, and he was on 60 Minutes in America. What are you laughing at?
Just because there's a Simpsons, it just makes me think of the alien Kang.
Oh right, yeah. Is that
Kodos? Yeah.
Well, this guy is Kang. I only wrote down Kang when I was taking his name down because I didn't want to offend anybody by trying to pronounce the surname. So I just wrote down the Kang bit.
There's going to be a lot of names butchered here. I think the concept, there's going to be a lot of words here.
And he was part of the three generation rule, where if any of your family commits a crime, you all go to the gulags or whatever they call them. And he was born in the mountain, like inside where the camp was, inside the mountain. And he was one of the people that eventually escaped. And he said he had no idea about the outside world. He didn't know. He thought everywhere was inside a cave. Like, think of that, like inside a mountain, like you're born. But not even 2 generations. And I thought it was just if you escape, but it's no. If you commit a crime and they deem it that you're going to go to jail, all 3 generations. So you have a lot of people that are born inside the mountains, in the camps. And he was saying that some of the jails are even inside the camps, like inside the mountains. So, but there's a lot of water, and you're not allowed to wear shoes. So people's feet would rot in the water because you can't get out. You're in the cage and you're in puddles of water, so your feet just rot away. They also have they hang bodies up inside. It's like people that are hung, and they force you to throw stones at the dead body. At the dead bodies that are just strewn up like Roman, like the Christians on the crucifix is just everywhere, and you have to be ordered to throw stones at the dead bodies. And you go, oh, fuck it, this is now. This isn't like, this is going on now. Is it now that the nuclear thing, the nuclear bombs, you can't actually solve this problem any longer because now they've risen the stakes. Basically through Russia, haven't they? Russia have said, look, to cause more problems, get your nuclear bombs going. Or have they
I don't know how you deal with a state like North Korea, really, because they are run almost as a criminal enterprise. For the whole state is effective. It's like an old-fashioned monarchy, really, in that they are the whole state is run for the benefit of the leader, the financial benefit and the power of the leader, and they don't. And the people have been crushed. They've been so crushed by famine, by military oppression, by absolute control over everything, lack of technology, lack of access to the outside world, that I'm not sure what you do with them.
There's a talking about the army. They said their army are basically on their last legs. Like they said that they're starving. They said a lot of people that go into I keep using the term, the Russian term, the gulags, but I don't know what they call it. But a lot of them are soldiers because they're starving and they're stealing.
Qualiso is the term that
okay.
Yes, but it's political camps. It's the political prisoner camps.
But yeah, but the political is basically anything you do against the state. It's thieving from the state, talking against the state. There was 3 journalists that were shot because they'd reviewed a book that said maybe we should look at financial change. Like they're 3 book reviewers, not their own books. They're just reviewing the book. Got 3 of them killed. But yeah, this fellow was saying a lot of the soldiers they go to jail because they're stealing food. They're basically starving, and a lot of them don't want to go into the army, but they stay in the army just for the food, which is minimal.
Yeah.
And he said often they would just drop from starvation, and their families they're allowed to get their families to come and get them, take them away to feed them, to then bring them back again when they're able to stand up again.
It's so very odd because obviously, I mean, of course, it's very well stage managed, but the fact is that I can only speak for myself, and perhaps it's my ignorance, but you see so little of this deprivation. You know, you think in this age of, I remember at the UN Security Council when they were talking about when they were trying to justify the invasion of Iraq, and they said, here's a recording we've made, fucking what, the VCR, but here's a
cassette. We have the cassettes.
we have some cassette. We have some sketches, artist impressions. No, it was a conversation and it was everyone said, wow, this is the Americans really showing their hand here, because it was they had a photo of a truck, just some truck in the desert wherever in an army base. And they'd managed using satellites to record the conversation between these 2 senior ranking Iraqi officers. So you think, well, why don't we have this of, North Korea? Is it because obviously because of the Chinese and the Russian sort of support for these countries that it's harder to do? Whereas, Saddam Hussein was very much persona non grata, although many countries objected to the war in Iraq, that didn't mean that they then sided with Saddam. They just said you can't just go around invading countries willy-nilly. So it's interesting that what we do see of Korea, stage managed as it is, you go, well, that looks like a modern city, Pyongyang, that looks like a modern city. That looks like, you look at the army and you go, well, these guys all look tough. They're all very well regimented, in that funny...
They do their marching bits.
Yeah,
the big hats. They have those big Soviet hats.
Yeah, there's something very like you would go, why is this a really communist thing to do the whole Ministry of Silly Walks, hiking? But you don't look at that and go, oh, that tank looks like it's fucking secondhand or whatever. So it's very odd.
Manky.
Yeah, we don't see. They will say, oh, we find these defectors and they're all starving. You go, well, can I see a picture of this starving defector? Can you?
There was no information. There was no pictures and no information on those camps because I mawkishly kind of looked for any evidence because I was like, how bad is this? You know what I mean? On the scale of Holocaust to Gulag or whatever, what are we talking about here? And you're right, there is no solid information. There's no pictures, there's no videos, there's no satellite
the only
images.
problem
There's
with
no
that,
real
though,
satellite images.
There's not a lot of footage or videos that are coming out that's not wanted to be sent anyway, other than just the odd handy cam sort of thing. But you're not getting any photographs out of the camps. Nobody's getting that close. Do you know what I mean? There's a big difference between slightly being allowed to go to certain parts of a city and getting way out into the sticks with... That's not happening. There's no way that's coming out.
I suppose it's probably because of the fact that so many people have nothing, so they don't have a mobile phone to sneakily take a picture.
Yeah, and if you're 1,000 miles away from the city, an English bloke with a rucksack, and you're gonna, what are you doing over here near these mountains?
Well, you can't. When you go and visit, you have to go in. It's very expensive to go and visit North Korea, because you have to pay an enormous amount for visas and everything. Everything has to go in through China. Yeah, you have to have tour guides everywhere. There are all sorts of checks. I think it's something like £5,000 for a trip.
For like a week or something. You do like a week or 2 week or 3 week tours,
But it's just like going to Disneyland. You're just being lauded, seeing what that's being presented to you, and maybe the odd glimpse out. But you're not going to see the camps and all that. I mean, but that it would. We don't have
like
these. The analogy,
like
yeah, not quite. I mean, in terms of theatre, what you're seeing is like this fake life.
Just as many slave workers.
Yeah. I don't want to derail the conversation. I was going to go on to something then quite horrific. But the So the fact is, you're not going to get anywhere near these mountain hills. It's just not going to happen. But we know how these fascist governments work. This is how it works. You get these people and you stick them onto somewhere to build whatever or dig gold out of mines with their bare hands. That's how it works. But they I saw a show and it was saying how the black market is becoming almost as big as the normal sort of commercial markets, because the army are starving, everybody's starving, so they're starting to trade food and things like that, even with the soldiers, because like I said, everyone's starving, and I think that's when things turn around, isn't it? When they all say fascism fails when the army and the police start to starve as well. That's usually the turning point where they're no different to the.
Well, you look at the Roman Empire, you think every time the Praetorian Guard got their wages cut or thought they were going to be this. Yeah. I mean, one of the Roman emperors, Aurelian, who after an entire century, the crisis of the 3rd century, put a stop to that through military conquest, through reorganization. But then he was murdered by a Praetorian who thought he was going to be investigated for corruption. You go, this is the guy who's literally saved the empire from I mean, this is how long the Roman Empire lasted, that you have an entire century of decline, and it still goes on for another, in the West, still goes on for another 300 years and for another 1,000 in the East. But someone who went, oh shit, I'm going to be investigated for corruption, and it wasn't even true. He was like, "Oh God, they think I'm embezzling money.
Oh God, I'm going to be impeached.
Yeah,
burn all the documents."
Yeah. So just stabs the emperor in the back and dumps him in the river, and you go, "Fucking hell!"
Yeah.
But that's what happened. That's what That's why they periodically have these purges, probably because they hear these rumbles and these. That's all this. Apparently, whether it's true or not, I think Korea sort of works on. We're not going to neither confirm nor deny, but that. Kim, part of his, there was this mystery a couple of weeks back that he died secretly and they were covering it up, and apparently it was all a plot to see who would, then there were these stories saying, oh, actually it was all part of an elaborate plot to see who would react how when he died, because although his sister was the expected successor, I forget her name, it was to see which general was going to try and vie for power, which general's going to do this, which general's going to do that.
Who were the big boys? Who were going to duke it out?
Let's force their hand.
Yeah.
There's two things I want to mention. One is they've got a real bad, apparently, tuberculosis problem because there's no antibiotics. They say that a lot of people, you can go to the hospital, you're not going to get seen because they can't give you any antibiotics, and it's sort of gone rife within the country. And also they suffer very badly. There's a few things that have come out about the abuse for women. Now, women are usually second class anyway, most of these sort of things, but over there, it's very, very bad. So there's been some NGOs, companies that started up trying to do something just to protect the women. I mean, forget the men. They said because there's such a big difference.
Dare I ask what we're talking here?
Everything. So basically, they said even the soldiers. They said when you see the soldiers, their women are basically puppets. There's no standing in their society whatsoever. Only within marriage. And there's a lot of rape. There's a lot of sexual abuse goes on. There's one woman. She now works in America. I didn't see what show it was on, but she was talking about this, and she was a housing official, and she said you could go to meetings. And then one of the blokes there could just decide to rape you, and you can't really do anything about it. And she came out with this quote. She said, in North Korea, a woman's dream cannot be achieved without either being raped or selling her body. Like, it's part of the system. It's so normal to them. She said you could be the official when you go somewhere, and they could choose to rape you, and if whether they do or not, and there's not a lot you can do about it, and it's rife. They said that it's not. She said a lot of those, when you see the soldiers, she said a lot of the times they're waitresses and things, that they just get the best looking ones, put them in a dress, but then do the photographs, but then they just go back to normal life, and they're abused and sexually abused at will by the men there.
There is a prostitute. There is like a sort of official prostitute service that women are sort of literally kidnapped almost and press ganged into service in this prostitute sort of thing, and then they sort of sold off as wives afterwards. So
it seems to me like that almost seems. I mean, again, there's no such thing as there's nice dictatorship, but so often with these, what we would, these sort of things that they would view, so the Chinese, the Russians, the Cubans, these communist states that we're in with, they would view that as the most corrupt elements of decadence, of treating people like things. So it's so unusual that this state seems to not have that attitude.
Well, it's the picking and choosing, and what do I fancy? There's no sense to it. It's all bullshit. It's all broken. But it's just that they said the thing with the marriage, the marriage service and all that. It's all about respecting the leader and your wife. But then, like, once you're the property of a man, then basically he can do what they want. And until you're a married woman, you're attached to somebody, you're basically loose meat, so that anyone could do what they want. Yeah. But it's again, you have to remind yourself this is happening now. Like, all this stuff is happening now.
It's the worst country in the world currently, yeah. And it's the worst country for a while as well. Like, it's been the shittiest place for a long time.
Yeah, the sentences in the English language don't sort of do it justice of how bad it is. It's like all the words of bad and terrible. You go, no, it's horrific. There was a psychologist, and he was saying, they were talking about what do we do about this thing, and they said the problem you're going to have is, even they're waiting for the attack to happen. Basically, they're being told America this and that. I saw a sports day, and it was in North Korea, and it was they were doing a tug of war, and they had the kids pulling on the rope on either side, and in the middle was an American soldier with a rope around his neck, with like a strangulated look on his face, and they're like 8-year-olds, and they're pulling this thing, and it looks like they're strangling the American soldier in the middle. Like, kids, this is for. But a psychologist was saying, this isn't like Nazi Germany, where they've had sort of 6 or 7 years of, things have been bad, but you're still an adult. He said people have grown up in this for so long that you've got this neurological thing that's going to happen when they have to sort of adjust. Their brains aren't going to want to adjust. They don't know they're being oppressed that much. So if you did go in and free them or whatever, you'd have this basically a whole country's worth of refugees that you've now got to do something with. Everyone's going to want to leave. So he said, this has never happened before. To that ongoing sort of neuroses of how they've been living, you can't just go in and say, right, you're free, get out. It's not going to work like that. So he said, we don't know how that would work, because they've been told, here it comes, the Americans are coming to get you. Yeah.
Well, I think, as you were saying earlier, so many revolutions and sort of uprisings succeed, but ultimately they win the battle of overthrowing the government, but then they'll lose the war by replacing it with something just as bad.
Yeah.
And it's happened really throughout history. A lot of these revolutions, you look at Russia, look at France, they overthrow a tyrannical government, and without something better, without careful planning, they will often just replace it with something. They will just replace the power structures. I mean, that's what they did in Russia. Effectively, is that they had this absolute monarchy, and they had all this power concentrated in the aristocracy and the monarchy, and then they got rid of them, and then just put the party in charge, and they were effectively the aristocracy and the monarchy again. Yeah, and same thing with North Korea. Same thing with Egypt. They had an uprising. They got rid of the military dictatorship. Put in the they got in the they got in the army instead, and then they got in the Brotherhood of Muslims.
Is this the Tahrir Square stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got rid of the guy, then then he was.
Well, they had the army come in as a often with these things with a provisional council. Yeah. Then they had elections, and then the army decided they didn't like who'd been elected, so
it was the Muslim Brotherhood or something.
Yeah. So then they threw them in jail.
The Muslim Brotherhood, that was it. Yeah.
So I think they have had elections since, but I could be mistaken.
It's very tricky, and only really America has done it successfully. Is the biggest successful example, I think, of having a revolution and replacing it with something non-tyrannical.
Well, all they did was essentially said we want the same system, but not. We want to have our own. So instead of having a parliament with a king, America, we want a senate with a president.
How's old Kim Jong doing now? I haven't heard anything. Is he still disappeared? Has he vanished?
No, I think he has been seen in public, but I could be wrong.
Oh, he has?
Yes.
There's reports in the last, I think on the 11th or 10th or 11th of this month, he was at an opening of something, a factory or something. It's difficult. Again, it's difficult to know what's real and what's not.
Yeah,
when that might have been a year ago, we don't know. There have been pictures of him released. Apparently, I heard a rumor that in beginning of April, he was supposed to have had heart surgery or some kind of invasive, kind of a serious medical operation. So it might be something to do with that. Apparently, there were satellite footage of the medical block in the Forbidden City in Pyongyang, which is the party headquarters, the very sort of secretive, militarized sort of party HQ. Right in the center of Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. Apparently, the medical block for that has recently, about 3 months ago, it was completely knocked down and rebuilt into separate quarantine units, effectively. And they were hinting that maybe this was a precursor to something for effective treatment of coronavirus, because it was these separate sort of pods and units.
Yeah.
And apparently there have been rumours that several cities here and there have been quarantined, and there have been quite serious outbreaks.
Oh, really? In North Korea?
Yeah.
Oh, so even they haven't got away with the...
Well, I imagine although obviously, it's not in the same way that tourists are going abroad and bringing back coronavirus, but, they do have dealings with, so import arrive, because they're saying coronavirus can survive on plastic for, they think, up to 3 days. But, it's also if a Chinese boat comes in, bearing in mind that that's their one partner, all it takes is, this isn't a blame thing, but all it takes is one person unknowingly having coronavirus. He's unloading all the stuff. He passes it on to the 10 people at the dock. Those 10 people pass it on to, because I think the thing with coronavirus is that, sorry to sidetrack into coronavirus, which I'm sure we weren't planning on talking about, but it's different to, whereas most diseases, I think on average, a person passes it to 1.5. I know you can't pass it on to half a person, but just statistically, you pass it on to 1.5 people. With coronavirus, you pass it on to 3. So then the 10, and those 3 then pass it on to 3 each, and so on. And that's how this one spreads. So you can understand why that would happen, especially if people are crowded into, these collective kind of, because it's still got this collectivized farming, and you've got these labor camps, and you've got however many people. I think Pyongyang has a very large population. I think if it's, I was reading somewhere as facts about, 15 whatever wacky facts about North Korea, and it was saying that if Pyongyang was an American city, it would be something like, 4th or 5th in terms of population, because, as the single city, obviously, when you take into account metropolitan areas, then but as the actual city itself, then yes, it would be.
Where were they? Where did they do their the Olympics? Didn't they?
So they had the Olympics in Pyeongchang, because there was a lot of people going. There was a lot of people going, look, I know it's Korea and it sounds like it, but it's not in North Korea. It's not Pyongyang. It's Pyeongchang in South Korea, and that was where they had athlete. They had Korea. They did have athletes from both competing together.
Right, yeah.
So I think they were.
But they did a very big. I don't know. All the dancers at the beginning came on, and there's like hundreds of thousands of kids doing it. But there was a human rights things I remember seeing at the time where these kids had been training for like 6 months to make this thing perfect, and they were like. They weren't allowed to go to bed at certain times. All these human rights things were violated because they tried to sort of keep kids safe. At least they have a lot of thing about even the kids don't have to wear the little badge and all that they can do. But it turned out they were giving them pills to keep them up so they could keep training, like 8-9-year-olds.
Well, sidetracking. Yeah, I mean, look at the human rights violations going on with the World Cup preparations.
What's that?
The World Cup preparations in the United Arab Emirates.
Right, so I don't know anything about football. So what's going on? The World Cup coming up?
Yeah, the World Cup. It will. Well, who knows when it's going to be on now, because it's the Euros have been delayed. So who knows? But they was going to be in the United Arab Emirates. So Dubai and Qatar.
I thought it was Oman, wasn't it? Or
Oman,
was it
yeah. It was it's made up several principalities. It's made up several principalities. I forget all the names. But yeah, so they were building all these infrastructure and stadiums and stuff, and they shipped over tens of thousands of Dalits, the sort of untouchables from India, and they just working them to death. and just literally they're just dying on the sites and they're sticking them in the concrete and just carrying on.
Yeah.
And this is for the World Cup, and they know this. And there's,
yeah, they don't care the big money. How many?
Well, because the check's cleared.
Yeah.
I was going to say that sort of area. How many envelopes stuffed full of money to get the World Cup over there went backwards and forwards?
But that's all that.
Yeah, I suppose.
FIFA, that's all FIFA care about. They don't bother about anything else. They don't care about football. It's just money.
It's too big now. It's got to be. It's a business. What do we do? Something about football, but just keep the money coming and going.
Yeah.
What's in it for me? That's all.
So what's going on with North Korean sports then? Do they have?
They have a team. Yeah. They had. I think it was a couple of World Cups ago. They
qualified, didn't they?
Yeah. They
played Brazil.
They scored, they scored a goal. They lost,
but then can they transmit the sports then?
I assume so. I don't.
Maybe just their sport team, because they can't have black people and things like that running around, can they? They can't have any, because they believe in that purity of.
I think they acknowledge that they exist, but they just maybe don't like them. I don't know.
I don't know if they're blurring over the people's faces as they're, the other position.
With the dear leader's face. Whoever wins has got his little face over the top.
I imagine whoever's... they would only show North Korean games. So
that's what I was thinking,
and so I don't think, they're not going to show the group games. They'll probably... I mean, who knows? The honest answer is I don't know. I don't know what the TV is like in North Korea.
If it said, look, we've randomly picked a podcast, you get to go to North Korea for a week, would you do it?
No.
Yeah, just wouldn't even put your foot in there.
No.
Charles, I think Charles would. He's a Roma. He's a bit of a Roma.
I did actually look into it because I was curious about how one could. This was years ago, a couple of years ago. I was curious about, how are you allowed to do this? How does it work? Because I remember looking into maybe doing some tours of Tibet a long time ago, and again they had very big restrictions. You had to go with tour guides, Chinese government tour guides, and you go to certain sites, and it all had to be very government chaperoned. And so I was curious about how they were doing North Korea, because I do see people were going there and visiting, and journalists were going there and doing reports. It's a difficult one because it would be fascinating, but obviously what you're seeing isn't, as you said, what you're seeing isn't real.
Yeah, you're going to see a play.
Yeah, it's like going to Disneyland. It's like, right, you're going to go to America, and they just take you around Disneyland for a few days, and you go, wow, the Americans have it great.
Everyone's smiling.
yeah, everyone's smiling, and Mickey Mouse is there.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
all these giant mice and goofies and stuff. Okay, this is a cool place, and it's not a realistic thing. But then you are still learning by experiencing their projection, their idealized projection of themselves. You are still learning something about them. Yeah. In a way, but then you're also funding the regime and you're condoning it in a way. So it's
no, I think you're right. It's there's a thing with psychology where if you go to like a therapist and things, they say no matter what you do, you're being analysed on it. So if you try and hide something, you're being analysed for trying to hide it. You don't have to hide it. It doesn't matter what it is. So I think maybe in that term, just even getting the message out of this fake thing that is going on is part of the message that needs to get out there. One that the thing I listened to with the guy we went to the hospital, he was a journalist. Can't remember his name. He's done some books, but he said you go to like they take you around to all these places, and he said one of the places he went to was like a playground, and he said you could see it looked like actors. Everything was like nobody was looking at you. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they were who are these people? No, their kids are playing, but nobody's acknowledging you there. There's just this weird atmosphere of like everybody's Show. Acting. Yeah, he said that. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, So there was a guy on the podcast the other day. He said he took an acid trip or something, and he said he suddenly thought.
Always a good start for a story, isn't it?
Yeah, he said
some acid, and
he flipped out, and he believed that he was in like a Truman Show, and that everywhere he'd ever gone in his life, there was like a handful of people that were just being interchanged around him. So he sort of ran thinking, no, it's the same amount of people that are just, I can't get out.
Okay. two things. I had a mate who did loads of acid, and he thought exact same thing, and there were cameras everywhere.
I had a mate. Yeah, of course, Charles.
Yeah.
And then my other mate, he always just goes, he goes to the shops and he goes out and does stuff, and he goes, I saw the same girl 3 times. Because they're running out of extras, mate. Because they just have to reuse the same extras on a loop, mate. I'm getting wise to him. I've got the knowledge. Yeah.
What happens at the end of Truman Show? I can't remember. Does he get out or whatever?
He gets out. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Oh, what happened?
Yeah.
Don't ruin Star Trek for me again.
So
you blew that yesterday.
Cyborg. It ends with the guy in the moon. I forgot his name now. Played by Ed Harris.
It's Ed Harris, isn't it? Really, doesn't it?
And he's trying to convince Truman to say, "Look, a little like you were saying about North Korea. Actually, the parallels are kind of funny. That he was saying, look, where are you going to go? This is your life. I was here. I watched you I watched you be born.
Oh, yeah, you're
I watched you
safe.
cut your first teeth. I watched your, graze your knee. Blah blah blah. Everyone here, is it. You're not out there. The world is where the sick people are, where there's cruelty and all this kind of thing. He says, you go.
You have a perfect life here. Yeah.
Yeah. You're taken care of here. It's just
Look after you.
Here's one for you then.
But he steps out and goes off.
If you could go into a Truman Show and you know you're going in, would you choose to go in as of now? So there'll be a job provided for you, there'll be people, and you'll be safe and your health, everything. You're in a big set.
No, because I'd miss my family and friends.
But would you? It's like, would you take the blue pill?
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of going into a perfect world. That's what it is. You can go into a world where everything's
you live in Mad Max. You could either
it's all
take
going to revolve around
live
you.
in Mad Max, and it's awful, and there's like a war, or you could just carry on and like just have your job in New York and just do it.
Yeah, I think it's one thing if you don't know it, but after about a year, everyone's smiling at you and everything's perfect. You would go fucking insane. Like that would send you insane because you need you need ups and downs. If everything's just good and you know it's fake, you're then going to feel hollow.
It's a bit like being on Instagram.
I was going to say, this is why this current iteration of the Matrix that we live in is so successful, because it is an imperfect world. Yeah.
Don't tell them, Charles. Don't let them know.
So there's something they've got in there. It's called a songbun, SONGBUN, and it's basically part of the class system. Whereas you're basically, your life is half decided on depending on what your ancestors have been up to. And they did use the word ancestors, not like parents. The ancestors. That's how deep they go. So a lot of who you can marry and all that you have to be of that class, the areas you can live. Although it's also down to your career and if you're in the army. Like Pyongyang seems to be sort of a country within a country. It's got all the theme parks, it's got all the cities, the flats and the flat roads and things like that. But it's when you step out of it, you sort of go into so one guy said, people would eat grass. Like you go out to the sticks and people would eat grass because there's just no food.
Yeah. It's like a really shit on the nose science fiction story, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, that's how far you have to go.
All the rich people and the elites live in one like mega city, and then like everyone else is just like eating grass and like killing each other. For pennies,
it's back to what we was talking about the other day. I don't know if it was on the podcast or about the Morlocks and the eagle that they use in Star Trek. So I think, funny enough, the first time you make it sound sensible is when you use science fiction terms, because you have to go to that level to sort of make it like that. It's that fucking mad that it's like, it's almost science fiction. What's going on?
I was talking to someone about the, and this isn't to compare them necessarily, but I was saying it's a little bit like the Nazis. They're the evil and the sort of, and everything, the fact they have black uniforms with skulls on. This is like something out of a book. This is Lord of the Rings. This is Sauron and the orcs, and all they want is, it's almost because there's nothing that equivalent.
And especially if that, the Nazis only happened for a few years. If you think that's gone on for a couple of generations, think what that. I saw something about the cars that they sell. The brand is called Peace, like it translated, but it's a government. They're government cars, but the money goes to the government. So even like the cars they drive are like off the government. I shouldn't laugh, but it's just
because the government technically owns all the means of production, doesn't it? It's a state-run,
I believe there's been some
industries.
I believe there's been some relaxation of in terms of free market imports exports, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't really understand.
So what happened with the Trump thing when he went over there? Is something? I know it didn't go well, but did he solve something to? are they getting more of something relaxed, whatever?
Well, there were talks in 2018. I forgot what they called them now. They had a very convoluted UN type name.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
It was the Singapore's talks or something.
Yeah, it wasn't quite to do with unification, but it was like, hey, let's maybe kind of like not necessarily put that back on the table, but let's like put the document in the same room on the sideboard near the table.
It's funny because on one side you've got the isolationists. We don't need anybody. We're a pure race. We haven't got no impurities in our race, and we can do what we want. Delusion. And on the other hand, the country's crumbling. But on the other hand, so they need help. But their help is from what they've been calling the enemy. And the enemy are so greedy and ravenous that they're desperate to get their big boots in there with the money in the buildings and all that. So you've got this weird thing of like, we need you, but we can't have you. And on the other side, you've got this rapacious country desperate to get money in there so they can start building McDonald's.
Yeah, but well, I agree, but on the flip side, I think it's probably between death camps and McDonald's. I'd probably pick McDonald's. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
between Netflix and McDonald's, or like literally the concentration camps. I think Netflix and McDonald's is.
They should just go in there with the sort of rationing bags and give them out. It would just have a little brown bag and it have like a pack of fags in there, a hamburger, and a Netflix subscription. You go, here we are. Here's the modern
with the Wi-Fi password. Yeah,
and an old porn mag, because I'd be like, if you suddenly went from no internet to like look at some of the gross stuff you can find on the internet, that would just blow their minds.
You're like, what? I can just Google anything. Yeah.
What with a horse? So just give them give them like the lingerie catalog, like an old 1980s lingerie catalog. Be like, look, we're going to build
Razzle,
you up.
Yeah.
So have you? I don't know what Razzle is, but I'm assuming it's a porn mag.
My mate, but two of my mates, they said that they went off to. They said they were in a shop, and no, they said they were going to go into the shop, and they were like, right, and they had a plan to nick a porn mag, and like so, one of them's going to go distract, and the other one was going to go nick it. So he was like, went in distracted, and, you know, bought loads of those penny sweets from the jars, you know, like kept asking for more and more, and then like so the guy went off and nicked the porn mag, and then they said they came out, and he's like, oh, what did you get? And he's like, over 50s readers' wives. He's like, what? And they're like about 14 or so, 15. And he goes, I panicked. I didn't know. I just panicked.
Oh yes, that's like 100-year-old when you're that age.
I mean, because that's who buys porn mags anymore? Like, you still
I don't know.
Truckers, I don't know.
When we were doing the filming, and we had for the thing we're filming, and we had to do the porn mag scene. So as usual, we got changed.
This is
at the
not
last
a porn
minute.
film we're filming, by the way.
Yeah, so we're filming the
mockumentary.
mockumentary. This amazing,
it was a prop. Yeah.
This amazing mockumentary we've been filming. I've got to tell you something about that. So we had to change something. We ended up using a porn magazine in one of the scenes where I was shocked. That's what the scene was supposed to be, the fact that somebody's reading a porn mag. But when I went there, I suddenly thought, hang on, do they even exist? Like, surely they don't exist. I mean, I haven't looked up for ages in the newsagents. And when I went there, I had this pang of, oh, this is horrendous. Like, please don't let it be a little old Greek woman or Turkish woman behind the counter. And thank God it was like a young bloke, so he didn't give two shits because he probably ain't got a brain cell anyway. And I went and bought it, and I came back.
Nice.
But then it was one of them times where I was cleaning some stuff out, and I found the mag, and I put it out. But then I went off to do some work, and I came back, and the landlady had come round. And I thought, no! And I wanted to go, right, do I just ignore the whole situation completely? She's definitely seen it. Or do I go, hi, it's me. Right, I've got, and then just try and dig a hole even deeper, or is it just pointless to ignore it? I ignored it.
I think you just had to kind of just brush it off, really. I think because trying to explain it, just like especially with that long. Oh, it's a prop for a film we're shooting.
Yeah,
so this film. It's a joke. Yeah. It's a joke. It's not really real. It's not mine.
Yeah, look, here's the scene.
It's not really mine. It's a prop.
Oh, I've written a whole fake scene just so you can look at it. Look at it.
Look, here's the script and everything.
Yeah. So it turns out the whole documentary, this whole project is actually just a cover.
Just to get away with one scene of embarrassment, I filmed pulled all these people. That almost sounds like a documentary that could be made. He filmed this whole fucking thing just to sort of get away with
excuse
because he didn't want his landlady thinking he liked 18-year-old porn or whatever.
The
Just 18 or something like that, whatever it's
Oh
called.
God. So
hot twinks, yeah.
Yes, that's
hot
never been
twinks.
Hot twinks. What does that mean?
No, don't tell him what a twink is.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to know. I got
It's a
enough
very
shit going
skinny,
No, don't
hairless
tell
gay
me.
man.
on. Oh, for
Just
fuck's
Google
sake.
it. Google it, and he'll tell
No,
you.
I'm not
It's fine.
Googling it.
Just,
I've
when you
got
get
no-
back, just Google Twinks. Yeah.
I must be on
Please,
some
no
sort of
one
list.
Google
I think I told you before when I was dating somebody and I had a computer, and I realised she was every time I was looking at stuff, just anything, she was going in and looking and erasing the history. And I was only like new to computers, so I don't think she knew I knew that because I'd like go through the history and I think, oh, it's all been cleared. And I realised, oh, she's erasing it every time she's here, right? So she's watching, she's going back and looking. So I put in, I didn't know nothing about NSA and all that. I put every fucking bomb, just terrorist thing, because when I found out people were watching the thing, I bunged everything. But I thought, oh, now years later, I thought, oh god, that's still on your record. Like that's got to still be there. I put in every fucking, I feel like I had the death wish or something. I thought, come on then, you fucks, right? Bomb, fucking sex pervert, fucking whatever. So I'm definitely on some list somewhere.
One last thing before we get back on track.
Oh, yeah.
We do need to get back on track. There's a Key and Peele sketch.
Yeah.
About internet history, browser history. That's very funny and you should watch.
What's that British thing?
She's like, the wife comes back from shopping, goes, that's strange. Every time I go shopping and I come back, I find the internet history's been deleted. And he just goes, that is strange. It just cuts, goes, like a bead of sweat starts going down his face. And he's just like, maybe it's something to do with like it updated and then it automatically, just deleted all the history when it did that. And he goes, no, it doesn't do that. And he goes, and he's going, another bead of sweat. And he's just like...
I've updated the Mac recently. I haven't seen it update before and updated it. And now it's all gone slow. Loading up's gone slow, everything. They've done me. I thought
I'm loathed with updates. Yeah,
I'm not doing
because the update's always shit. The first update's shit, and then they have to patch the update in order for it to actually work.
But you
properly.
get no benefits from the update. But what you do see a massive change is that your phone trying to keep up with it. It's not. They're designed to not be able to keep up with the updates. So now I'm not updating the phone anymore, and that's the last time I'm updating the Mac. So North Korea.
Yeah.
So what else have you got on North Korea? Tell me something good, Charles. You got your big pad there.
Yes. Well, Room 38.
Oh, I haven't heard of this. What's this?
Room 38 is it is effectively the department for that handles the slush fund for the Kim family. Is effectively in charge of all the criminal activities.
Right, yeah.
That these states indulge in. And I was a bit kind of, because I'd heard some stuff, and I was just thinking, I'd heard a few things, and I didn't really know what to make of it. Because again, when you've got the CIA and so and so, South Korea telling you like, okay, they're all up to all these people are funding terrorism, and it's all up to no good, and you're like, are they though? But there have been but the thing is actually looking into it, researching it. There's been an awful lot of people of literally North Korean diplomats involved in trafficking and criminal activities of anything you can imagine.
Yeah,
people trafficking, organ trafficking, drug smuggling, counterfeiting money, counterfeiting goods, cigarettes, insurance fraud. I mean, like anything you can name, hacking, bank hack, hacking financial institutions for profit. Anything you can name, the Korean government is actually doing officially. You know what I mean? They use their diplomats in embassies across the world as effectively agents, and they use diplomatic immunity and diplomatic privilege and career bags to smuggle things around. I mean, it is crazy. They've locked down the methamphetamine trade in Asia, in Southeast Asia. They are responsible for a third of the meth going into China, and most of it's going into Australia and America. They are also responsible. They did a trace of counterfeit cigarettes, and it was a huge amount of. They found thousands. They did like a sort of a random survey of cigarettes being sold in America in just in a couple of states, and they found 1,300 different stores selling Korean manufactured counterfeit cigarettes, like stores, shops, grocery stores.
Yeah.
They are, as I said, it's endemic. They in fact they were so big in the counterfeiting game that the American government had to introduce a new $100 bill, what they call the super bill, because there were so many Korean fakes in circulation that they had to introduce a new bill. And the U.S. Treasury Department did actually state that this was one of the reasons, like the major reason they were doing this is because North Korea was flooding the market with them.
Bloody hell.
And most of this money goes straight into the Kim family. As I said,
that's the thing. There isn't any really government. It just filters up to Kim. All the money filters up to Kim. You got the lackeys below, the elites. I remember there was something where a guy was saying, when things were turning up with food and supplies from different countries, it just immediately got pilfered by all the rich, and then some sort of little bits of it dripped down to the poorer people. But it's just this ultra elite. Yes,
but yeah, I mean. So some facts and figures here.
Yeah.
What's it? 2010. The US caught 5 North Korean nationals smuggling in 40 pounds of meth. 2001. The US government declared that North Korean illegal drug revenues 2001 was $500 million to $1 billion. The Washington Post in 2013 claimed that just from meth alone, they were making $200 million a year. And then weird stuff like 2004, 2 North Korean embassy workers were arrested with 150,000 painkillers.
We've all had hangovers like that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that's just a wild weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in the Bulgarian embassy, again, there were North Korean officials arrested with 500,000 uppers.
But how are they getting arrested though, with all the immunity that they have?
I think they are arrested, but they might have to be released. They are involved in drug stings. They are basically they're doing wider drug investigations, and they are coming up in these drug investigations as being part of the supply chain.
So they're sort of like the mafia. They're just putting their hands out anywhere to get money from somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, there's the ivory trade.
Oh, really?
Like, what was it? 18. Bit different. 18 North Korean diplomats have been arrested over the past 30 years for smuggling ivory.
Bloody hell. So why should you just do a stop and search on them? If that many, it's not like one rogue one. There's like 18 of them.
Well, this is endemic. This is what I'm saying. They seem to be using their network, these legitimate diplomatic networks, as criminal networks. They also have been selling weapons, conventional weapons and explosives, to loads of countries that are banned from receiving them through shell companies and proxy companies. They caught several shiploads of weapons going all over the place, to Somalia, Ethiopia, the Philippines, and stuff including RPGs and surface-to-air missiles as well.
I read an article. They were talking about how they seem Kim Jong-un seems to he likes the theatre of death. So a lot of times when people are put to death, the family have to watch, and he's got a sort of perversion for sort of killing people or executing people with sort of anti-aircraft missiles.
There was
the mortar as well. They executed a guy by mortar.
Oh, mortar, there was one
barrage,
guy. I know one guy got done for falling asleep, and he was blown up by rockets.
Wasn't his uncle that was allegedly involved?
Yeah, that's
wasn't he fed to a dog or something?
Oh yeah,
fed to dogs. Sorry.
Oh, dogs. Yeah.
Because his half brother was assassinated, wasn't he? The Playboy brother.
That was so weird. Did you know the story behind that?
Vaguely, but if you
loosely, I don't really know.
Well, they got this girl involved. That was the one with the girl where she ran up smeared this toxic.
But she thought it was a game show or something. They trained her to think it was a game show.
Yeah, very strange. Yeah,
the thing is, you never want.
She was. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. You go.
No, go
is this worth talking about? Because you just don't know if it's just bollocks. Because it does sound like bollocks.
Yeah.
So what was
it does.
What was the story?
Was it Singapore?
It was at the airport, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I think it was Singapore.
So they got this girl to go and rub this bacteria on this guy's face, and it was the brother.
Half brother,
yeah.
Yeah, but they got her,
not stepbrother.
Oh yeah, they got her to do it. Don't start that again. They got her to do it, but she'd done it previously to other people, and she thought it was a game show that was being filmed.
They did.
That's
Yeah,
like
it was a
deep-
reality TV show, game show thing, and like
Yeah.
they gone to this huge elaborate lengths of recruiting her and setting up a fake production company, and going to do all these things. And again, it's difficult to know what to believe because it sounds so fucking stupid and so weird and out there. You're like, is that real? Is this a bad defense in court? But like, she swears blind. She still does. I haven't checked up on that actually, but she swears blind still. That's what she thought, and she came across in some interviews as being a bit simple.
Oh right, yeah, they just got an idiot. Okay.
So yeah, I think if you find the right person, you could get them to do anything. You get people to shoot each other on Big Brother if you know what I mean. If you've got the right people on Big Brother and just say, "Oh, it's a game show. Here's some guns. Just go for it."
There's some game show on Netflix, not game show, reality show on Netflix where they invited them in. We might have discussed this, I can't recall, but they invited people. I forgot what it's called now. It's got some absolutely redonkulous name, and it's where they're all invited in a Love Island type scenario. You know, very young, beautiful people, and anytime they do anything intimate with one another. So there's like a grand prize, of, let's say £100,000. I don't know what it is, but every time anyone, you know, like, so if you do a kiss. If you kiss someone, 10,000's knocked off the prize. Oh, if you, I mean, I was listening to another program. They were like, "Well, look, shit, man." If they were like, "Does everything cost the same?" Because you might be like, "Well, fuck it. If you're going to give me a kiss, you might as well give me a blowjob."
Yeah, what's the scale?
If they're both 10,000, but yeah, it was just like, God, imagine like what an you know. I mean, I like rumpy pumpy as much as the next person, but surely. Like the fact that it's like, oh, we're gonna, you know, here's some money to not fornicate on television. Just,
for a week, for like a week. All we could do is like 2 weeks. I'd just be like,
however long it
right,
is, you know.
Done 4 years without it.
Another week. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's shit.
But you know what I mean? Like in lockdown, I'm not like, right, I have to, you know.
Have you seen the film?
Like humping the table leg. Yeah. It's just like, you know.
Have you seen the film Greed with Steve Coogan?
No.
So I watched it. And I watched it last night.
Any good?
Yes and no. It's odd. It's odd. It's quite. They're trying to make a film and make a very serious point as well, and they do attend to both oddly. And in amongst that, it's set as in. It's supposed to be about a billionaire fashion guru guy who may or may not be. Like the Stephen, what's his name? Green? Stephen?
Philip Green?
Philip Green, but it's not him, but it's like him.
Yeah,
and, they decide to throw, it's all based on that they're building up to a big part, his 60th birthday, the guy who's not Philip Green, Steve Coogan in the show. And he's building a coliseum, like a small coliseum in Greece. And it's all about getting this thing built and getting cheap labour and there's, you know, all that sort of stuff. And it goes on his backstory of how he came about. And it's the whole thing of fashion. They do talk about fashion as it's playing out. Like, well, if you undercut me, then somebody just undercuts me by a penny. And then somebody else will come in. So we give me it for a penny less. And it just goes down and down and down until basically nobody's earning anything apart from the billionaires in the Western cultures. But yeah, it's all building up to this big thing that he's trying to make it like Rome, but it plays out in that sort of Godfather 3 that it's, you know, they've got the opera. Well, this is the building up to the Colosseum, and they all have to dress in robes, but it plays out as the Roman Greek tragedy sort of that would happen to do with parenting and grown kids as spoiled kids and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, it's weird because they have some reality thing in there where I think they've got they've got a couple that are there and they're doing a reality show. Well, they're actors, but how they sort of hate each other, and they're trying the fake. They've got the guy who looks sort of campish, who's supposed to be the guy who's got the shaved chest and the plucked eyebrows, and he's the boyfriend. And they're playing it out, this reality that's being filmed on Mykonos and the island. And the girl can't cry, but then sort of somebody bumps into her and ruins her makeup or something. Then she starts crying, and they go, "Right, film now." But she can't cry. Fake. She can only cry because she's being minorly pushed, you know. Also, so they've got this fake reality show being played out, but they highlight how pathetic these two people are, and the production crew is just ridiculous. But they do things like they give some Syrian refugees, and they say, "Oh, well, what would be good is if you show like you two are in love, and you go and give them some food." So they film them giving them the food, and the refugees are like, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, here's some food. But then they say, oh, right, can we do it again? Can you go and get the food back off the kids? And the parents are like, what the fuck are you doing? They're fighting over the food, and then you don't understand. And then she starts crying. She goes, oh, she's crying. Right, get the camera back on. Oh, fuck it. So it's really odd. It's like all these weird, twisted stories. It's good, though, but it really does, it points out, like, the fact of, like, in Bangladesh, how little they're paid, and there's fires, and they try to brush the fires on. It's really, really odd. But it's sickening because it really is like they say at the end, they put all these stats up about how much they're getting paid and how many fashion billionaires and all this sort of stuff. But it's just they're stuck in this loop of, well, if you'll do it for this amount of money, then just do it for a little bit more. Then somebody else comes in, we did it for them, and then what happens is you build up a company, and they come in and say, right, now want it 20% less, and you've got 100 people working for you. So it's quite sickening to watch, actually. But yeah, so corruption, back onto Korea. So they're up to drug dealing. They're a big drug dealer. They're up to everything. But I suppose, they're clawing at anything to make money. But it's just all going to the elites.
Yeah. And what did you say it was called? Room 38?
Yes, Room 38, yeah.
Why the name? Because of the parallel, or?
Yeah, it can't be. I was going to say, I thought, no, that must be stupid. It can't be.
I think it's just literally Room 38 on the third floor of the party headquarters. Like, because there is Room 39 and Room 40, I think. And Room 39 is the legitimate end of it, or it was for a while. I think Room 40 is something else. So it's just literally the room number.
It's got to build up to it. And then at the highest point, it's just 2 + 2 = 5, and I love Big Brother.
yeah.
Which room's that one in?
I can definitely. I do like the end of that book. Spoiler alert in 3, 2, 1. Just like, he's through these. Is it gin or vodka soaked tears?
Well, I was just about to say to you, I haven't watched that for years, so I've got to watch that again. So I can't remember. But go on, what happens?
I don't want to say everything that happens, but
I can't put up with watching that again. But go on, what happens?
Okay, it's just
spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, go and see it.
Well, read the book, yeah. So 3, 2, 1. So he's basically, as he's shot in the back of the head.
Yeah, as a bullet goes into the back of his brain, and then that's the last sentence. And I remember having to read that several times. I was like, what? Can't just finish like that. I was like, what?
But yeah, he says, I realised I'd won the battle. I loved Big Brother, and he's just there like sobbing through gin, because he's watching some propaganda thing. But he's
so why do they kill him?
Just because they can.
Because they can.
So he admits he goes for it then in the end, does he? He goes, okay, yeah.
I think he does confess to having committed crimes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and he comes out. They politically re-educate him, and he comes out, and he's reformed.
All I can remember is
and then they shoot him anyway because, like, fuck him.
How many fingers were holding up? No, you have to want to believe that. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
The greatest command the party ever did was to convince people to disbelieve the evidence of their eyes and ears. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we sort of are getting to that Big Brother stage, aren't we? The TV, and I mean, it's in the house. It's just we've invited it in. That's
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing. Reading. Yes, North Korea is a authoritarian state and a dictatorship, and has absolute control, and is awful, and has absolute control over all the information and media, and and every facet of people's private lives. It's an appalling state. But I start to think, yeah, like for instance, you see those. I remember you see those crowds and everyone crying over the leader and the leader's birthday. It's not too different from the royal wedding,
or celebrities,
or the Queen's
celebrity
birthday.
You've never met,
or the Queen's birthday. No, the Queen's birthday. People line them out. People line outside of Buckingham Palace. I'm not saying that we're an awful, authority.
Yeah, but we're not exactly.
People come out and cry for the people in tears for the Queen. People in tears for when Kate and Will's married. They're literally weeping, renting their garments. And it's.
But you come to the realization that there isn't like the baddies and the goodies. It's like a lot blurrier lines between them and us. Like you go, well, all the stuff. It's not the 50s anymore. We're not sort of going, oh, they're evil and we're good. You go, well, our lot are a load of shit as well. So it's not like it might not be as bad.
I cry for the Queen because I'm like, fucking hell, the woman's in her 90s, man. Does she have to keep going to like this fucking pottery thing or this? Like, just let her just watch it on the TV. Send Charles. She's got fucking so many grandchildren and great grandchildren. Get them, oh, she's 90, has to go out in the winter and like, oh, isn't this nice, this garden centre? No.
But they're on the last legs. The royal family now, they really have, it's slowly downhill from there until they eventually dissolve and they just become a PR firm for the UK. And that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the rule has gone.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, they haven't had any real power for 100 odd years. But I think, essentially they're going to become much like they are the remaining royal families of Europe. Is that they all, some of them literally have jobs, and a lot of them do have jobs in PR because it's like, well, that's what being a royal is being PR. Yeah. But a lot of them have day jobs and they wear suits most of the time or whatever. And they just turn up for these, every once in a while for whatever the pomp and circumstances are required with basically a suit, but they'll wear a sash or something like that. And that's what I think our royal family will become.
The Dutch royal family. The Dutch, as always, are very sensible and doing very sensible things. They have a royal family. I don't think they're part of the constitution, or they're not an active part of the political constitution. The Queen and the previous king, I think the current king, he gets the tram to work. He has a job and he gets the tram. You see him out and about, and he's in the car. He goes to restaurants, cafes, and he'll grab a coffee. And you're just like, oh shit, that's the king there. Oh fuck. You know what I mean?
I just saw recently that the Prime Minister of New Zealand, who I think is the best Prime Minister in the world currently, she
certainly doing a stellar job, isn't she?
Yeah, she got turned away from a cafe because she was trying to get a coffee, and they said no, we're too busy. She walked off, and they chased her. I'm like, oh, there you go. She just went to get a coffee.
Jocasta Arnold, is that right? Am I saying the?
I don't know.
Her first name is Jocasta.
What, the New Zealand Prime Minister?
Yeah, her name is. First name is. Kerem.
She's the only one that seems like a real human being.
Jacinda Ardern or something. Jacinda Ardern.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. She seems like
Jocasta Ardern. Did you say, Kerem? Jacinda. That's
You're very quiet.
Jacinda Ardern. Thank you.
She's the only one that seems like a normal. Whenever there's a tragedy or something, she goes on there and she just goes, I'm really fucking sorry. Like, this is really bad.
Yeah, with the mosque shooting, she came out and said a lot of.
I remember that. She was crying. Like, she said, "Look, this is. I'm sorry we didn't protect
against
you.
all of us.
Yeah, I'm sorry we didn't protect you. I remember. Oh, God.
In your place of worship, she really came out and really nailed the sentiment afterwards. And they've had no cases of coronavirus, no deaths from coronavirus, no cases of coronavirus now for 3 or 4 days. I don't know about today, but they've been corona free for a few days.
Right. Good.
And they said they're legalizing cannabis as well. So I mean, this is all sensible messages, is what I'm saying.
So Charles has booked us tickets. I don't wish to be cynical, and this isn't about her, but I'm always just like, oh, when's the other shoe going to drop? When does it turn out she's got shares in this arms company or that arms?
So you
company?
believe in that, but you don't believe in bloody UFOs? Give me a knock. Sort your life out. Which side are you on?
Politicians are much less feasible.
Probably. Yeah.
No, I didn't say I didn't believe in UFOs at all.
Yes, you did. You say it doesn't. It's worse than that. You say they exist, but they haven't visited here. Well, just say they don't exist then. What are you talking about?
No, those you just can't get over that. Those aren't two mutually exclusive.
Of course, it. Right, let's stop there. Right, Korea. Yeah. So anybody else got any closing words about North Korea?
I was just curious, actually. What's because they all have different. All the leaders, so all the Kim dynasty. Because you've had so which is Kim Jong Un? Is he because you've had supreme leader and this and that and whatnot? So is he the dear leader or is he the?
You've got the Sun King, haven't you? Is that the previous one, Sun King?
And there was Song Il.
Kim Il Sung, because it means something of because that's not his real. That wasn't his birth name, but Sung is to do with something like the child of the sun or something like that.
Yeah, Sun King.
And he is the. He is the eternal chairman, eternal president. I think he is.
Yes, the chairman for not just for life, but for the afterlife as well. Yeah.
And then Kim Jong Il is the eternal chairman of the National Defence Commission.
What is it? Who's the? Is it the Hungarian Prime Minister has made himself sort of Prime Minister for life or something? One of them. One of them has.
He's taken executive control. I think that the legislative has been indefinitely suspended. So the parliament.
Oh, that's right. Until they say there's no more threat, sort of thing.
Until there's no crisis. Yeah. Time crisis.
God, yeah. That's like what once they invented America. Once they started calling people terrorists, and that blurred the lines. that's when it was like, right, this is never going away now. That terrorism, that's there forever. What do you do about terrorists? What did you say?
That's nothing. That's nothing new under the sun.
No, it's definitely got
slaves.
No,
I mean, they
was...
had different classes of citizen, didn't they? They always have done in America.
Yeah, it was our slave. Yeah, but also just I'm talking about the whole of the world. So Rome would go, oh, there's some Goths coming over the hill. Not today, but maybe tomorrow. Or the Gauls. Was it the Gauls? I thought it was the Goths. Oh no, that was last week. Oh, and then there's some people trying to overthrow the thing. Overthrow what? The Republic. But we don't have a Republic anymore because you just made yourself dictator for life. Yeah, but I'm doing that to stop them overthrowing the Republic. Oh, and did I tell you about the Goths and the Gauls coming?
Yeah, and as you've been questioning me, what's your name? Can I see your papers?
Yeah, and your family. There is, and then it's, then he goes home and there's that nitty guy from Untouchables. Hey, you have a nice house. There's that. But it's, oh no, we've got to do this now because the Parthians are coming in the east. Who the fuck are the Parthians? What's a Parthian?
I don't know. Somebody just outside the walls.
Yeah, just some
foreigners. There's foreigners everywhere. Some of them are different colours. Yeah, but
some
of them have got weird eyes. They've got weird eyes. They've got squinty eyes. Get them.
But it was the same with the Greeks. They were like, oh, there's this small town in northern Italy that's starting to get a bit big for its boots. We should probably go do something about that. And while we're doing that, we've still got these slaves. And oh gosh, North Africa's kind of like there's a bit of a power vacuum there right now. So everyone does it. No one's anything. And it's
I suppose America. It's like we've got to start that war over there so it doesn't come here. You go now all the gloves are off. You're just doing what you want now.
Well, this is this so-called thing with Obamagate that he's, Trump's trying to push forward that Obama is the leader of this Illuminati paedophile ring. And you're like, could that be? It's weird that he's picked now to reveal that. Like, almost as if he wants a distraction.
But whenever he says anything about he's a corrupt, he's a liar, he's weak, he's there, you go, oh, stop it, because you look really fucking pathetic when you say it.
It's all projection.
So like
Hillary, look at her.
Yeah,
she's like a balding 70-year-old fat man. Yeah? She's had 3 wives.
But when he says
kids don't love her, she's a loser.
Yeah, he's a loser. When you go, oh look, it's so funny because it is literally just somebody slagging himself off, giving you all his secrets.
But that's the thing, it is such projection. I mean, with him, it's such projection because it's everything that he says about someone else. You're like, oh, this is your shit that you're pinning on. Yeah. Because she just eat McDonald's all day. She's a fucking moron. She watches Fox TV. She has no brain. She's going senile.
Doesn't he admit to eating loving McDonald's? I thought.
Yeah, but I mean, it's all the negative things though.
Anything like, stupid. Yeah. I've heard on the grapevine. I mean, he's going to be introducing our 100th show. Trump is back to introduce our show as he did on the previous one.
From prison, live from prison. Yeah,
yeah.
Anyone else from prison, Charles?
This is a collect call from from Washington State Prison from Donald Trump.
I like your Donald Trump impression.
He would be really in trouble because what with his personal hairdresser and all that, that'll all go. So he'll suddenly have to lose the tan. He'll have to lose that weird fucking cloud that hangs above his head.
In prison, you mean?
Yeah.
He's not going to prison. He's not going to prison, is he? He's going to win 2020 and then he'll go for another 4 years.
Then never leave.
No, I don't think so, because he's an old man. He's not a young man, is he? So then he'll go.
No, but he's got his family behind him. They'll be like Rome. They'll be more corrupt than him.
They're
already talking about one of the kids to take over. So was it Don Jr.? I think they're saying to be the next president after.
Well, someone was saying Meghan as running for prime minister or whatever you call it.
Meghan Markle.
Yeah. Like maybe
is she not Canadian though, or did she
work
in Canada? No, she's. Oh no, she's American.
She's American.
I definitely did see it. They said maybe she should go for it because they were talking about Obama's missus, but
Michelle. Yeah.
But they said, well, they've been talking about Obama himself. I think is that legal?
No, you can't. You can't come out. You can serve. No. You can serve 2. You don't have to serve your terms consecutively, but you can only serve 2.
But I thought maybe once you're out, you get
amendment. There's
a certain amount of years you go back.
No, because originally that wasn't the case at all. It was just because Washington only served 2 terms. Right. Most presidents only sought a second term, if at all. Not everyone did. I think it was. There's one president.
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt won 4 elections. He served 3. He won the 4th, but only did not very long of it at all. So Truman, because Truman served on Roosevelt's presidency because he was vice president, but had about 3 years. He then won his own election, but I think then he was so vastly unpopular by the end of his first full personal term, so he could have gone for another
most
term.
of the Korean War as well.
Yeah,
people were like, "What the fuck are we here? We just fought this. We just fought World War II. Now you're getting us involved with the fucking Chinese." So what?
But it was because I can't remember who it is. It's either something in the back of my head is saying it's either Grover Cleveland or it might be one of the Adams. Was the only president to serve 2 terms but non-consecutively. So for example, I think it was Grover Cleveland, then somebody else, then Grover Cleveland again. But I can't remember. It's somebody like that, going
like
back
Gladstone
that far.
or whatever. Like Gladstone and Israeli kind of swapped.
Well, hopefully we don't get to see Mr. Kim again. Hopefully he's sick and doesn't get any better. But
we have seen him again.
Up, so I suppose, like the Trump family.
Does he have children? I can't remember because he is married, isn't he?
No, but his sister though.
This is weird. Okay, because he is officially. Guess who this sounds like? I'm like, what a shitty country where their leader won't even declare how many children he has. Yeah, officially, we have to make it up. I was like, what a backwards place this is. What a shitty backwards place. We can't properly elect a leader, and he won't even tell you how many fucking kids he's got. This is what I mean. It's like, we can be very high and mighty, but come on. I'm not saying we're as bad, but we're on the scale.
You're in the same ballpark.
Yeah. He has one official. I think he has an official son or son. He then has. There is a second one. Dennis Rodman, when he visited, claimed that he had a daughter, a younger daughter. So there was at least 2. And that's the only reason we know about that is because of fucking Dennis Rodman. I don't know how reliable.
Don't say his name again, or he'll appear.
True. He'll appear with weird hair
and a dress.
Does he still go? Because obviously it was him and Kim Jong Il, wasn't it? That were friendly.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think they were obsessed with basketball and everything. So I think he went at the invitation of Kim Jong Il, and also as just some weird self-appointed ambassador.
He claimed he went in. This was in 2013, I think. Apparently, he visited and this is where he said he's met the second daughter, and like they had like a big old house and a private cinema, and they had all the sports and all the TV channels just there. So he was able to watch all the American TV when he was there and everything. So I'm saying they know what's really going on. Apparently, South Korean intelligence, through the South Korean papers, have said that he's had a 3rd child recently. Because he is married. He's married. And his wife looks quite nice. She looks an attractive lady, pretty lady. And I'm like, he's done all right for himself. Because he looks like...
Look at that child throwing her a bone.
Very
gracious.
I think he looks like a Minecraft character. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he just looks like a block with a smaller block on top.
We said before, he's like a Lego. He fits perfectly for Legos, square head.
Yeah.
They do have the rules, don't they, with these haircuts? The men are only allowed like a 2 centimetre haircut. 2 inch haircut, and the women have to be bobbed haircuts and all that. Yeah. Oh God! Well, talking of not disclosing things, what the fuck's happened with Donald Trump's taxes? I mean, it ran out ages ago when he was supposed to present them. So what's happened? We just let it go now, have we? It was like about 4 months ago or something when he.
Yeah, Charles, why'd you let it go?
I'm sorry. I dropped the ball on that.
Reading correspondence.
It was just the we. I didn't realise we were.
No, but that's it. It ran out. It was, I think it was a few months ago when the time ran out where they have to present. They were told you have to present it. There's no more excuses, and they said no. And they said right, this is the date, and the date passed. That's it, is it?
I think that,
don't worry about it.
I think a lot of these things they just tie them up in legal stuff. So
but they've done the legal stuff. The time they said no, you can't think it. This is the time you have to report with this. You have to allow show us it, and it was about 4 months ago, and they've just gone.
But you do more appeals. You just do more appeals, and you send it to the Supreme Court or the local district court or the state.
If it was you or I, you're gone. You're just in a cell,
yeah.
hanging upside down like the fellow in Life of Brian, just swinging away.
But this is
you lucky bastard.
Yeah, fucking fiction, you lucky bastard, you jammy kid.
I just when you say these things, and this isn't to be mean, Theo, but
Oh,
when
here
you
we go.
say,
It's gonna have a
when
pop.
you're like, oh, why haven't they done anything about it? Why has it not been? I'm like, this is like when you were thinking Bernie Sanders was going to get in, and you felt the sun on your face.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
Oh, of course,
I
he's gonna
nearly
fix the
came
law.
over to your side. I nearly crossed over, and I was thinking maybe I'm wrong, mate. And
I'm
then just no, all the fucking coffin lids closed, bang, bang.
Yeah.
But that's it, done. That was all bollocks. You're not having any.
I'm the guy on the bomb at the end of I was about to say Stringfellow. Doctor
What's it called? Dr. Strangelove. Yeah.
Yeah,
Major Con.
the guy on the nuclear bomb just going, because he didn't intend to go down on the bomb, but he's just like, well, here we go. Whee! And
All I know about that one is the
that's who I am.
Simpsons version. I've only got
Yeah.
the Simpsons version in my head. I can't remember the actual.
Yeah.
They've got a mock-up. They've got a mock-up of the Big Boy, I think it is.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
bomb, I think. Or the other one. There's two of them. I forget the other. But they got a mock-up of one, like a life-size mock-up. And I've in the Imperial War Museum.
Oh, Fat Man and
yeah.
Fat Man,
Big
Big
Boy.
Boy or something,
Yeah.
Little Boy. Yeah,
I think it was two. Little boy, little.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but they've got a mock-up of one of them, and I've always just wanted to just jump on it and ride it. Like,
Just get that photograph.
get
in
my
your
mate
hat.
there. Yeah, get my mate there with a camera and just go. I bet they
God.
have like. I bet they get that a lot. They're like,
I watched.
"Oh, God."
Yeah, I watched the thing the other day about the nuclear bombs for the Bikini Atoll and all that, and it's fucking depressing. Like I just thought, why did I watch this? Just the stupidity. They're not giving a shit about the locals. The poisoned everything, fucked everything up. People died. Soldiers died because they didn't know about the blast zone and all that. Oh well, that's not a happy way of ending. But yeah, it's just to show we're just as stupid over here as they are really. I mean, it's done in. We've got better PR firms over here. That's how they get away with stuff. So anything else to say, or is it you happy? You think we've done everything? We've covered everything.
I, for one, welcome
Yeah.
our new Korean overlords.
Well, that's
The corruption perception index. This is a good little fact. Yeah, has ranked North Korea 174th out of 176 countries.
So who's 75, 175 and 176, Charles?
Well, I think that it's actually tied bottom.
Oh.
The 174. It's
Somalia or
tied bottom
something.
with Somalia and Afghanistan. so
where
they
there's
are
barely any
technically
government at all.
Yeah. Or it's just war, literally just drug lords, like just running the country.
Yeah, the
Because I was
Congo.
going to say, because Somalia has no real effective government and is run by
there's nothing
pirates,
really.
and Afghanistan has just been in a constant state of warfare for the last 20 years.
yeah, at least. Yeah, last 200
unremitting
years. Yeah.
Yeah, truly. But yeah, unremitting warfare for 100 years. You're like, well, kind of giving them a pass, I guess.
yeah.
Just try not to die.
They've got
So
they've got
that's,
excuses like Somalia and things. They're not really country. I mean, Somalia's not really a country. Afghanistan is barely a state, but I mean, it's a narco state effectively now. But yeah,
really?
North Korea is now just a corrupt kind of state. It's, as I said, it's criminal enterprise really.
So that's North Korea done. Sorted that out. Tie that off. If you don't know to go and look anything up, no need to read any books. We've done it all, Charles.
Tick. Yeah.
PhD, you can have that. Stick that on your
One more quote.
Oh yeah.
One more quote. There was a doctor. I read an account of a doctor who defected. She was a North Korean doctor, and she just got sick of it. She was a big socialist and she believed in it, but she just they didn't have any supplies, and she was doing her best in this hospital for 20, 30 years. Eventually, she got sick of it, and she managed to make it across the border into China. And she did this long walk across, Korea and then into China. And she said that she came across a farm in China, and she said that there was a dog outside this farm, and it was eating meat, and it was just eating kind of scraps, whatever bones or whatever leftover scraps. And she was like, and this was the quote in the book, is that they said they feed dogs better than doctors in China.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So it just takes somebody with a bit of balls to go in there and sort it out, or just let all the people keep dying. And...
Oh, you went very Trumpian there. You're like, it takes someone with a lot of balls.
Yeah. Definitely not him because he hasn't got any balls. So, well, there you go. Got to finish on something happier. Anything going on, Charles, Andrew? Anything nice happening?
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
Andrew,
Go ahead.
Okay. No. Yeah. There's a squirrel. We've got bird feeder out there. This
is very parochial, Charles.
They've got bird
literally.
feeder outside, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's sort of hanging off a little arm. There's little
Buildings
metal arm.
kill birds, Charles.
Yeah, get rid of the buildings.
Yeah,
So just live free. No,
$1 billion a
fuck
year
it.
in America.
So yeah, we got a little bird feeder on a metal sort of hinge or whatever arm thing, and this squirrel now, he used to hang onto the wall and then grab onto it and then try pull it in and then try and eat it. He now has got this system where he climbs up onto the metal arm, sticks his feet in, and then dangles backwards upside down
Like Spider-Man.
like Mission Impossible. Like Tom Cruise, literally, he sort of hooks his feet in this metal thing and then goes backwards upside down. So I'm like, what the fuck is that? And it's like an upside down squirrel.
Oh, God,
and he hangs on, grabs the thing, and eats upside down. And literally, you can see his stomach like tensing as he's doing it.
Oh God, his abs.
Yeah.
Does he
He's
powder his hands when he?
going. Yeah. It's
You
weird.
should. I can see a YouTube channel starting up, Charles, with millions of viewers.
Yeah.
And I'm not even
works.
joking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really weird because you're like, what am I? I was like, what am I looking at? And there
An
was like an
upside
upside
down?
down squirrel. Yeah.
Just hanging upside down.
Yeah.
You were thinking to yourself,
literally.
God, that Korean meth is really hitting hard.
Yeah, these pills are great.
That's a prime shit. Yeah.
Oh, drug take. There we go. Andrew, what you got going on? You're
Well,
still just writing scripts, just constantly writing scripts.
Yeah, still just writing. So I was working on a script edit. I've worked a couple of script edits, but one I'm like, so I've done this, and I was like, but I think for this bit, that might be me overstepping the mark as an editor. So if you want to do that, and they're like, no, I'm fine for you to do it. So I'm like, I'm basically just rewriting this whole fucking thing.
Okay.
Oh no.
But fair enough. I'm like, all right, fine, I guess whatever. So I'm gonna. I think I did this a couple of days ago, but I feel like we need a bit of cheer. So a couple of days ago, a couple of episodes again. So I think for a little cheer, here's another bit of gold from the late great Tommy Cooper.
Oh yeah.
It says, Doctor, I can't pronounce my F's, T's and H's. Doctor says, well, you can't say fairer than that then.
And on that note, we will say goodbye.
That's good.
The
Take
love
care,
needs
ladies
more
and
Tommy
gentlemen.
Cooper. Yes. Goodbye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.